High Commander Lyra Vex of the Valaxian Expeditionary Force stood motionless on the bridge of her flagship, the Stellar Dominance, as it breached the quarantine zone around Sol system. Her iridescent scales shimmered with anticipation under the stark lighting. After centuries of debate, the Galactic Council had finally authorized a formal first contact with the supposedly primitive species known as humans. "Status report," she commanded, her translator converting her native clicking speech into standard galactic common. "All systems nominal, Commander," her science officer Zenek reported. "No sign of detection from the Earth defense grid. As expected, their technology appears to be at least 3 centuries behind galactic standard." Lyra permitted herself a small gesture of satisfaction, a slight ripple of her head crest. This mission would cement her place in Valaxian history. First contact with a pre-spacefaring race was always a delicate operation, but the protocols were well established. Show overwhelming technological superiority, establish dominance, then graciously offer membership in the galactic community, under proper supervision, of course. "Launch the display drones," she ordered. "Let's give them a proper show-off." "Commander." The sensor operator's scales flushed bright orange in alarm, multiple energy signatures appearing out of nowhere. They're everywhere. Lyra spun to face the main view screen just as hundreds of vessels seemed to materialize from empty space around her fleet. Ships of all sizes and configurations, but all bearing the same markings, an angular symbol she would later learn was the letter H surrounded by stars. "Impossible," she breathed. "Their detection systems shouldn't be able to." "Incoming transmission," her communications officer interrupted. "Text only, using our own encryption protocols." "Put it on screen," Lyra ordered, her professional composure cracking slightly. The message was brief and in perfect galactic standard. "Valaxian Expeditionary Force. You are in violation of restricted space. Your vessels have been targeted. Stand down immediately. This is your only warning. Earth Defense Command." Before Lyra could respond, her tactical officer reported in barely contained panic. "Commander, we're being painted by weapons locks from multiple vectors. Energy readings suggest weapons tech at least equivalent to our own." "How?" Lyra demanded. "The quarantine beacons have been monitoring them for centuries. They should barely have achieved atmospheric flight." A new voice cut through her ship's communications, this one audio and distinctly human. "That's the funny thing about quarantine beacons, Commander Vex. They work really well as camouflage when you figure out how to modify their signals." The voice belonged to Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet, though Lyra didn't know that yet. What she did know was that somehow, everything her people thought they knew about humanity had been catastrophically wrong. "This is impossible," Lyra protested. "We've been watching your development. Your civilization is primitive, divided, barely into your atomic age." A soft chuckle came through the comm. "Commander, did it never occur to your people to ask why Earth was quarantined in the first place? It wasn't to protect the galaxy from us. It was to give us time to prepare." "Prepare? For what?" "For this moment. For the day when the galaxy would decide we were ready to join them. We've known about the wider galactic community for over 2 centuries, Commander. Every crashed scout ship, every leaked transmission, every piece of technology we could salvage. We studied it all. But more importantly, we studied you. Your protocols, your tactics, your assumptions about how civilization should develop." Lyra's scales had shifted to a pale blue of shock as the human continued. "While you watched our public broadcasts and monitored our official space programs, we built something different. Something that didn't play by the rules you expected us to follow. We took your technology and did what humans do best. We improvised, adapted, and found ways to use it that your people never considered. But your wars, your conflicts," Lyra began, "taught us to think differently," Admiral Chen finished. "Every battle, every crisis forced us to innovate. While the galaxy perfected standard military doctrine, We were learning to be unpredictable, creative, to turn weaknesses into strengths. A holographic display materialized on Lyra's bridge, another impossible feat, showing the true extent of the human fleet surrounding them. It was at least 3 times larger than her sensors had initially detected. "Now then," Admiral Chen said, her tone shifting to one of professional courtesy, "shall we begin first contact properly? As equals." Lyra looked at her crew, seeing her own shock reflected in their color-shifting scales. In less than 10 minutes, humanity had completely upended centuries of careful observation and planning. And somehow she suspected this was only the beginning of the surprises Earth had in store for the galaxy. "Very well," she replied, struggling to maintain her composure. "Perhaps we should start over." "Excellent suggestion, Commander. And welcome to Earth space. We've been looking forward to this meeting for a very long time." As Lyra prepared to face this new reality, she couldn't help but wonder what other revelations awaited. The quarantine hadn't contained humanity. It had incubated them, given them time to grow into something the galaxy had never seen before. And now, ready or not, the galaxy would have to deal with the consequences of that long isolation. The real first contact was about to begin. Lieutenant Maya Patel moved through the shadows of the Valaxian cruiser like a ghost, her quantum absorption suit rendering her virtually undetectable to the ship's advanced sensors. Behind her, 4 other members of Earth's Special Operations Division followed with equal stealth, their movements precise and deliberate. The mission was simple: demonstrate to the Valaxian delegation exactly why humanity's approach to warfare had evolved so differently from the rest of the galaxy. Admiral Chen had been explicit. No casualties, no permanent damage, just a clear object lesson in human ingenuity. "Team check," Maya subvocalized, her neural implant transmitting to her squad on frequencies the Valaxians didn't even know existed. "Harper, clear. Rodriguez, clear. Zhang, clear. Blackwood, clear." They had already passed 3 security checkpoints without triggering a single alarm. The Valaxians, like most galactic species, relied heavily on energy-based detection systems and automated defenses. They never considered that someone might simply walk past them. Maya allowed herself a small smile as they approached their target, the ship's primary command center. In the 2 weeks since first contact, the Valaxians had maintained their diplomatic veneer while quietly analyzing every piece of human technology they could observe. Now it was time to show them something they couldn't analyze, because it fundamentally challenged their understanding of how technology should work. "Begin Phase 1, Maya ordered. Zhang reached into his equipment pouch and removed what looked like ordinary clay, pressing it against specific points in the corridor. The substance, a hybrid of Earth materials and reversed engineered alien tech, would gradually harmonize with the ship's power frequencies, creating subtle distortions that most species would dismiss as normal fluctuations. "Remember," Maya transmitted, "we're not here to frighten them. This is a teaching moment." The team accessed a maintenance shaft, another concept the Valaxians had largely abandoned in favor of matter transportation technology. As they climbed, Maya reflected on how human history had shaped their approach to warfare. While other species focused on bigger weapons and stronger shields, humanity had learned through countless conflicts that victory often went to those who could think around conventional defenses. They emerged 2 decks up, directly adjacent to the command center. Through the wall, Maya could hear Commander Vex speaking with her senior staff, likely discussing their ongoing analysis of human capabilities. They had no idea they were about to get a very practical demonstration. "Phase 2, Maya ordered. "Harper, you're up." The tech specialist pulled out what looked like a child's toy, a small sphere covered in irregular bumps. It was, in fact, one of humanity's most sophisticated developments, a quantum field manipulator that operated on principles the Valaxians had never considered, precisely because they were too primitive by galactic standards. As Harper activated the device, Maya's augmented vision showed her the cascade of effects rippling through the ship's systems. The Valaxians had built their technology on the assumption that certain physical laws were immutable. Humans had spent centuries finding the exceptions to those rules. Inside the command center, displays began to flicker. Security systems reported contradictory data. Environmental controls registered impossible readings. And through it all, not a single alarm was triggered, because as far as the ship's computers were concerned, nothing was actually wrong. What's happening? Commander Vex's voice carried through the wall, her translator struggling with the edge of anxiety in her tone. Unknown, Commander. Another voice responded. All systems report normal function, but that was Maya's cue. Phase 3, she transmitted to her team. Let's introduce ourselves. The team stepped through the command center's wall, literally stepped through it, as their quantum absorption suits temporarily shifted them just slightly out of phase with normal matter. To the Valaxian crew, it appeared as if 5 humans in sleek black armor had simply materialized from thin air. The reaction was everything Maya had hoped for. Scales shifted colors rapidly as the aliens processed what should have been impossible. Security officers reached for weapons that had already been quietly disabled. Commander Vex herself stood frozen, her elaborate uniform gleaming under the command center's lights. Good evening, Commander, Maya said pleasantly, her own translator perfectly rendering her words in galactic standard. I hope we're not interrupting anything important. How did you get in here? Vex demanded, her professional composure cracking slightly. That's actually why we're here, Maya replied, gesturing to her team to stand down. Your security chief suggested in this morning's briefing that human military technology was, I believe the term was, charmingly straightforward. We thought a practical demonstration might help adjust that perspective. She nodded to Harper, who deactivated the quantum manipulator. Ship systems returned to normal, though the Valaxians' color-shifted scales suggested their peace of mind would take longer to recover. What you just witnessed, Maya continued, is what happens when you force a species to think creatively about warfare. Your civilization developed energy weapons, so you built energy shields. Logical, straightforward. But humans? We looked at energy shields and asked what if we just stepped around them instead. Impossible, one of the Valaxian scientists protested. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical using your methods, Maya agreed. But we didn't use your methods. We found another way. We always find another way. That's what makes us different. Commander Vex had recovered some of her composure. And this demonstration, what is its purpose? To help you understand something crucial about humanity, Commander. We don't think like you do. We never have, and we never will. And that's not a weakness. It's our greatest strength. Maya's team began to phase out of normal space again, their forms becoming translucent. We can schedule a proper technical briefing tomorrow if you'd like. For now, consider this a friendly reminder. Humanity didn't spend its quarantine learning to fight like the rest of the galaxy. We spent it learning to fight like humans. As they disappeared completely, leaving the Valaxian command crew to their shock, Maya transmitted one final message through their ship systems. Sleep well, Commander. And remember, if we can get in this easily for a demonstration, imagine what we could do if we weren't being friendly. Dr. Elena Santos stood before the gathered Valaxian Science Council, fighting to keep her amusement hidden as she watched their scales shift through various shades of confusion. On the holographic display behind her, a complex problem-solving algorithm scrolled past, one that had apparently violated several laws of computational theory. This can't be correct, senior researcher Cax declared, his translator struggling to convey his agitation. Your processing matrix shows clear signs of intentional inefficiency. No rational system would be designed this way. That's precisely the point, Elena replied, gesturing to the display. Human minds don't work in straight lines. We think in patterns, in connections, in seemingly random leaps that somehow land exactly where we need to be. She pulled up another display, this one showing the neural patterns of both human and Valaxian problem-solving approaches. The difference was striking. Where the Valaxian patterns showed clear, logical progressions, the human patterns looked almost chaotic, branching and looping in seemingly impossible ways. When we first began reverse engineering your technology, Elena continued, we kept running into the same problem. Your systems were too perfect, too logical. They didn't leave room for the kind of creative leaps that characterize human thought. So we had to break them. The council chamber erupted in chittering protest. The concept of intentionally introducing imperfection into advanced technology was nearly blasphemous to their way of thinking. Elena waited patiently for the noise to subside. Consider this practical example, she said, activating a simulation. This is a standard galactic ship's computer attempting to plot a course through an asteroid field. The simulation showed a ship meticulously calculating trajectories, processing countless variables to find the mathematically perfect path. And this, she continued, switching displays, is a human pilot. The new simulation showed a ship weaving through the asteroids in a way that seemed almost reckless, yet somehow maintained perfect control. Notice the difference. Your computer tries to solve the entire problem at once. Our pilots feel the flow of motion, anticipate patterns, react instinctively. But that's not how advanced systems should work, protested another council member. The computational overhead alone is massive if you try to replicate human intuition through pure logic, Elena agreed. But what if instead of fighting our supposedly primitive thought patterns, we embraced them? She activated her final display, showing the hybrid systems that humans had developed during their quarantine. We took your quantum computers and neural networks, but instead of trying to make them more logical, we made them more human. We introduced controlled chaos, allowed for intuitive leaps, built systems that could think not just in linear paths, but in fractal patterns. The council chamber had grown silent as the implications began to sink in. Elena continued, her passion for the subject evident in her voice. Your civilization advanced by making technology more perfect. We advanced by making it more like us. Adaptable, intuitive, sometimes messy, but always innovative. She gestured to a small device on the table before her. This simple calculator, by your standards, should be able to perform basic mathematics and nothing more. But watch what happens when we let it think like a human. The device projected a holographic display, but instead of showing straightforward calculations, it began creating complex mathematical art, finding patterns in numbers that shouldn't exist, solving problems it was never programmed to understand. Impossible, whispered Cax, his scales now a pale shade of awe. That's humanity's gift to the galaxy, Elena said softly. We don't just think outside the box. We forgot there was a box in the first place. Every problem you've declared unsolvable, every boundary you've accepted as absolute, we look at them and see possibilities you never imagined. She walked among the council members, making eye contact with each one. You quarantined Earth thinking we needed time to advance to your level. Instead, we spent that time advancing in directions you never considered. Our technology doesn't work like yours because our minds don't work like yours. And that's exactly why you need us. The senior council member, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Need you? For what? Elena smiled. To show you new ways to solve old problems. To help you see patterns you've been blind to. To teach you how to think, like humans. The council chamber erupted in discussion, scales flickering through colors as the Valaxians debated this radical perspective. But Elena could see in their reactions that the seed had been planted. They were beginning to understand that humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy might not be their technology or their military prowess, but their unique way of thinking. Fleet Admiral James Chen watched the Valaxian delegation's expressions cycle through disbelief, shock, and awe as their shuttle emerged from the quantum fold near Jupiter. Before them stretched humanity's true space force, not the defensive fleet they'd revealed during first contact, but the vast armada they'd built in secret during their centuries of quarantine. "Welcome to Jupiter Command," he announced, allowing himself a small smile as the Valaxians pressed against the shuttle's viewport, or as we like to call it, humanity's backup plan. The scene before them defied conventional space warfare doctrine. Massive ships of clearly human design hung in formation around Jupiter's moons, but they bore little resemblance to standard galactic military vessels, where Valaxian ships were sleek and standardized. These human vessels showed a bewildering variety of configurations, each seemingly built for specific purposes that weren't immediately obvious. "This is impossible," Commander Vex breathed, her scales shifting rapidly. "Our long-range scans have monitored this system for centuries. There was nothing here." "Nothing you could see," Chen corrected, directing their attention to a particular cluster of stations orbiting Europa. "Those facilities you're looking at, they're quantum shadow yards. They exist slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. Your sensors literally couldn't detect them because they weren't fully here until we wanted them to be." The shuttle banked toward a massive structure that seemed to phase in and out of visibility, the command center of humanity's hidden fleet. As they approached, more vessels and installations became visible, each revealing new aspects of human military innovation. "That design makes no sense," one of the Valaxian military observers noted, pointing to a ship that appeared to be deliberately asymmetrical. "The power distribution alone would be unstable." "By conventional standards, yes," Chen agreed. "But that's a Chaos-class tactical vessel. It's designed to be unpredictable. The asymmetry allows it to perform maneuvers that your targeting systems would calculate as physically impossible." They docked at the command center, and Chen led the delegation through corridors that hummed with technology that somehow managed to feel both advanced and distinctly human. Every few meters, they passed evidence of how humanity had taken alien concepts and reimagined them in ways their original creators never considered. "While your civilizations focused on perfecting existing technology," Chen explained as they walked, "we spent our quarantine asking different questions. You made bigger guns. We figured out how to shoot around corners. You built better shields. We learned to step between the energy layers. You mastered faster than light travel. We found ways to surf the quantum wake of your ships without you noticing." They entered a vast control room where hundreds of human operators worked at stations that seemed to blend organic and mechanical interfaces. Holographic displays showed the positions of not just their Jupiter fleet, but similar hidden installations throughout the solar system. "The quarantine beacons were your first mistake," Chen continued. "Once we figured out how to modify their signals, they became our perfect cover. Every time you looked at our system, you saw exactly what we wanted you to see, a primitive civilization barely reaching for the stars." He brought up a tactical display, showing the true extent of human space presence. Hidden bases on Mars, quantum shipyards in the asteroid belt, stealth monitoring posts scattered throughout the Kuiper belt. Humanity had built an entire shadow civilization, while the galaxy wasn't looking. "But why reveal this now?" Commander Vex asked, her professional composure cracking slightly. "You clearly had the advantage of surprise." Chen's expression softened. "Because we don't want to fight you, Commander. All of this," he gestured to the fleet and installations around them, "wasn't built for conquest. It was built to ensure that when we finally joined the galactic community, we could do so as equals, not as primitives to be guided and controlled." He led them to a conference room where detailed plans were displayed. Not battle strategies, but proposals for joint human-alien technological development, cultural exchange programs, and cooperative defense initiatives. "We spent centuries preparing not just our technology, but our approach to joining the galaxy. We knew that simply matching your advancement wouldn't be enough. We needed to bring something new to the table, something uniquely human." The Valaxian delegation studied the proposals, their scales gradually shifting from the colors of shock to those of deep consideration. They were beginning to understand that humanity hadn't just been hiding their advancement. They'd been developing an entirely new paradigm for how civilizations could progress. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet, Representatives from over 200 spacefaring civilizations sat in stunned silence as they processed the series of revelations about humanity that had unfolded over the past month. At the center of the chamber, Dr. Elena Santos and Admiral Chen stood alongside Commander Vex, who had become an unexpected advocate for Earth's inclusion in galactic affairs. The evidence is undeniable. Vex addressed her fellow council members, her scales now showing the deep blue of conviction. While we watched Earth through our quarantine beacons, believing we were monitoring a primitive species, they were studying us, learning from us, and most importantly, surpassing our expectations in ways we never imagined possible. The holographic displays around the chamber showed highlights from the past month's demonstrations: human stealth technology that defied conventional detection, problem-solving algorithms that rewrote the rules of computational theory, and fleet capabilities that had remained hidden in plain sight for centuries. But most remarkable, Vex continued, is not what humans have built, but how they think. They don't approach problems as we do. Where we see limitations, they see possibilities. Where we seek perfection, they embrace chaos to find new solutions. Elena stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. We come before you not as supplicants seeking admission to your community, but as partners offering new perspectives. The quarantine you placed on Earth wasn't a cage. It was an incubator. It gave us time to develop not just technology, but wisdom about how to use it. The chamber erupted in multilingual discussion, translation systems struggling to keep up with the overlapping conversations. A Centaurian representative raised their crystalline appendage. But why maintain the deception? Why not reveal yourselves sooner? Admiral Chen answered this one. Because we needed to understand not just your technology, but your civilization, your politics, your prejudices. We needed to know if the galaxy was ready for a species that thinks fundamentally differently about everything from mathematics to warfare. He gestured to the displays showing Earth's hidden achievements. Every ship we built, every innovation we created, was developed with one goal in mind: to ensure that when we finally joined the galactic community, we could do so as true equals, capable of defending ourselves, but committed to peaceful cooperation. And what do humans want from the galaxy? Asked an ethereal Andromedian, their form shifting like smoke. Elena smiled. To teach, to learn, to show you new ways of solving problems you thought were unsolvable. But most importantly, to help the galaxy understand that true advancement doesn't always mean moving in a straight line. Sometimes the best path forward is a creative leap into the unknown. She brought up a new display, showing a proposed framework for human integration into galactic society. It wasn't a traditional diplomatic document. Instead, it outlined a series of collaborative initiatives, exchange programs, and joint research projects. We spent centuries preparing not just our technology, but our approach to joining your community. We don't want to simply adopt your ways or force you to adopt ours. Instead, we propose something new, a true synthesis of different ways of thinking. The chamber had grown quiet again, but this time the silence was contemplative rather than shocked. The council members could see the possibilities Elena described, how human creativity combined with galactic technology could open up entirely new avenues of advancement. Commander Vex stepped forward one final time. When we first discovered how humans had secretly advanced, many of us felt deceived. But we've come to understand that humanity's greatest deception was letting us deceive ourselves. We assumed that progress only moved in one direction, that there was only one path to advancement. Humans proved us wrong, and in doing so, they've offered us a precious gift: the chance to learn new ways of thinking. The Council's Grand Arbiter rose, their ancient form commanding immediate attention. We placed Earth under quarantine, believing we were protecting the galaxy from a primitive species. Instead, it seems we were preserving something precious, a uniquely human way of viewing the universe. The question before us now is not whether to accept humans into our community, but how much we are willing to learn from them. As the council prepared to vote on Earth's new status in the galactic community, Alina and Chen shared a knowing look. The quarantine was ending, but humanity's true mission was just beginning. They would show the galaxy that progress didn't always mean following the expected path. Sometimes it meant creating your own path, even if that path seemed impossible to everyone else. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had known all along. The most powerful force in the universe isn't technology or weapons or even knowledge. It's the ability to look at the impossible and ask, what if?